That's my buddy Seth. He's been camping with us for a couple weeks now. He's gonna repack his bearings on his Airstream, and this is a video that I've wanted to do for a long time now. I've got a blog post that I'll put up in this corner on the mollymates.com blog that's all about repacking your bearings on your trailer, but there's nothing quite like a video that shows you how to do it. So today we're going to show you guys how to repack your bearings on your trailer. So every trailer is going to be different. Every axle is going to be different. This particular one is a 25-foot Airstream made in 2005. So depending on what model trailer you have, you may need to have different parts. This one has dual Dexter axles, and it uses a pretty standard size axle. The parts you're going to need are cotter pins. You're going to need one bearing seal for each tire. You're also going to need a tub of high temperature bearing grease, as well as miscellaneous tools. That's all going to be outlined in this video. But I'm going to put the links to all of these items below too in the description so that you can go out and buy these accessories and buy these parts and buy the tools that you need so you can tackle this job. I'm not a mechanic. I've only started repacking my own bearings on my trailers because I've seen too many trailers fail from bearings that are repacked by RV dealerships that, to my opinion, most of them just don't care enough to really do a good job. Some of them will, I'm sure. So this video is not really about saving money by repacking your own bearings. It's really about doing it right, knowing that it's done right. Without further ado, let's go to the video. So here we go. So here, foolishly, I didn't turn on the microphone yet, but it'll come on in a second. Meanwhile, I'll catch you up to date with what we've done. He's just taken the tire off by removing the lug nuts. And once you take the tire off, you'll see the hub. And the centerpiece in the middle of that hub that's been taken off also is the dust cap. So from here, we can dive right in to what Seth has done and what he will be doing, which is repacking the bearing, inspecting and cleaning the brake, and as well putting it all back together.
Yeah, I just took a minute to clean all this off. There's a bunch of grease out around the outer hub here.
But that, you have plenty of grease in there, so that tells me that you could have gone longer, but this is all preventative.
But it's really black. It's really dark compared to the fresher stuff.
Oh, you think there's some dust getting in there maybe, or just worn?
It seems like it's worn.
Yeah.
Somehow. It's a lot darker than it was originally.
Right.
So I think
although it's kind of like motor oil.
Yeah. Are you rolling?
The second you get anything in there, the second you dump new motor oil into your engine, it turns black.
Oh, right. Huh, I guess I didn't know that.
It's like if you just have any dirt left in there, it just infects all the grease.
Okay.
So that's the castle nut.
Castle nut. That's
the cotter pin comes out, and then the castle nut comes out.
Yep.
So very critical is to have a bunch of Amazon orders before you do this job so you can have boxes.
Right.
That's a good idea to have boxes.
Yeah, a lot of cardboard around to catch the mess.
Yeah, and the paper towels.
A whole roll of paper towels, yep. So I'm just gonna start putting all my pieces.
Well, that's a good idea.
Here. So as soon as I pull the drum off, the outer bearing is gonna fall out, so I want to be ready for that.
Yeah,
so I just have that there to catch that.
Yeah, so once you get the castle nut off, the drum is loose.
Yep.
The hub just...
So here it comes off.
There it goes. And all the bearings are in the hub.
So yeah, there's that.
That's the outer bearing.
Clean off all this bad grease here. Yeah, it's a little bit of a learning curve every year too, to remember everything.
Okay, so that little washer's got a notch in it, so it only goes in one way.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess when we put it back on, we can... Yeah, I'm cleaning off all the used grease, getting it fairly clean.
And then inspect it for wear.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Some people, which I don't do, some people replace the bearings every time too, which I think is excessive.
Oh, yeah. This is the 5th year I've just owned this trailer.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty darn sure the original owners didn't replace them either.
No, I've never replaced my bearings.
We'll just put this aside for now.
Okay.
While the drum is off, it's a perfect time to inspect the brakes and clean them up. This wire here, this is the electric connect to this magnet. So It's good to inspect that wire because it can get
caught
caught
it can get
here
pinched.
and it can get severed. So
the shoes look good. The shoes have plenty of material left.
yeah, they do. They're just dirty.
And the magnet looks good. Doesn't have too much wear. The stub axle looks shiny and clean. No etching or any kind of wear on it.
Yep.
So I think you're good to clean up and just put everything back on.
Yeah, so we have some brake cleaner.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're actually pretty darn dirty.
You don't need to change out your brake here, but if you do, you can actually do it really easily from here. There's 5 bolts right around here, and those 5 bolts just comes right off. And then what you do from here is, depending on how you got your brake wires connected, you can just snip them and then buy the entire assembly from Amazon for like $30-40.
Yeah, the whole set, I think,
Like a pair. You get a pair. Right?
Yeah, right. And I think I got all 4 for around $100.
Yeah, so basically, you don't want to go through the hassle of replacing the shoes, the magnet, the springs, and all this other stuff that may fail. If any one of these things fail, it's so much easier to just take the entire assembly off and drop a new one in, and they're really cheap.
Okay, so now, right here, we have the inner bearings and the grease seal. So,
okay, so you flip that around. Now we're looking at the inside.
yeah, can you see that?
Yep.
Right? So, yeah, there's a good amount of dust and dirt in the inside.
Yeah.
So, with this seal puller, you want to get it in under the
You're going to
seal
destroy the seal, but the nice thing is using this, you won't destroy the bearing.
Yeah, so it's not leveraging on the bearing, it's just on the outside of the seal.
Right. And the seals you're not going to want to reuse them anyways. Yeah, there you go. If it really gets hard, you can kind of work your way all the way around and get it to slowly come out. So that seal puller is only like $10 on Amazon.
Yeah.
Or you can buy it pretty much from any auto parts store too.
Yeah. Alright, yeah, this... So now we'll pull out the inner bearing. There she is. Inspect it.
Yeah, the things that you're looking for are like scratches and a little marring on the metal surfaces. You want to make sure all the bearings, all the rollers, and all the parts that make up the bearing don't have scratches and nicks in them. Because what that tells you is that something hard has gotten inside the seal. And as the vehicle goes down the road, whatever the hard material is that got inside is scratching the surfaces, and it could eventually wear them out. But that looks good.
Yep.
And then inside the hub there's basically like a metal sleeve that's called the race. That's kind of pressed in there, and it's really tough to get in and out. You really never have to deal with that unless those races get destroyed with either poor maintenance, just not doing it for a long time, and letting the grease run dry and having metal on metal contact. But yours looks really good. Yours looks nice and shiny.
Yeah, I'm gonna clean all this out now.
Yeah, so you have an inner race and an outer race, and these races are what those roller balls and the bearings. That's what they press up against. Yeah, what's important now is now that you got this inside part exposed, you don't want any foreign material getting in there. So this is all like the brake dust. Because right on the inside of this hub is where the brake shoes press up against when you're braking. And an interesting thing here to note is that some of you with newer trailers may never have to do this. At least not to this extent, because these are bearings that require service. There's newer bearings that never need to be lubed because they have completely sealed bearings, and the grease never needs to be changed out unless something catastrophic happens. But you'll still need to take them off and inspect the brakes. So really, I don't think those never lubes are. I mean, they are more convenient, but it does make people lazy and not inspect their brakes.
So I'm saving this grease for a fire starter.
Yeah.
That in this bag, and
that's like a candle.
Yeah.
Yeah, see those nice shiny races in there. The reason why those have to be in there is those races are made of a different material, harder metal, compared to the hub. The hub is made of just, your regular old, like, I don't know if it's what kind of steel it is, but the races are hardened, so they protect from wear. They're protected from excessive wear. If you didn't have those races and the bearings are just kind of rubbing up right against the inside of the hubs, they don't use the same kind of steel to make the hubs as they do the races. Brakes and bearings kind of have the opposite requirements. Brakes, you want them to have friction.
Yeah.
And races and bearings, you want them to have no friction.
Exactly.
The outer race and bearings are smaller than the inner ones, as you can tell. Alright, so that's ready. Now the brake and the axle is ready for reassembly, so is the hub. So now I just gotta prep all this stuff that you took off. So this little red cup, this clear cup with a red plunger here is called a bearing packer. You don't need to have this, but it really does make the process easier and you'll do a better job of it.
Yeah, I would say you do need it because it saves you so much time and it's more efficient, and it does a better job of really getting the grease to surge through those inner bearing areas. So.
And it's not expensive, so if you want to do it right, spend the extra few bucks to get this bearing packer.
Yeah, the first couple years I did it without it, and it worked, but I'd much rather have it.
And the other nice thing is, here, can I see that in the camera? You see how it's pushing out all those little strips of grease. That's what's been pushed out of inside, and then the new grease is being pushed in from underneath.
Yep.
You can really do a better job of packing the bearing, but what's also nice is that it's a really convenient place to kind of keep your grease in. So you don't have to just have like a bucket of grease that you're constantly trying to glob out, and also like figuring out what to do with it and cover it up so you don't get grease everywhere.
That's also true, yeah.
So you can contain the grease all inside there.
And what I'm doing now is I'm wiping off all the old grease because I don't want any of that going back in.
Right.
And then I'm gonna
wipe it on your pants.
Smear it out here. Now I'm gonna go in and give it another push
to see if there's any more old stuff in there.
Just try and flush out absolutely all of the old. Out with the old, in with the new. Oh, that's a good sound.
That came from the bearing packer, right?
Yeah, right. So
here you go.
Yeah, that's
starting
the sound
to see some freshies coming out.
Yeah, sound of fresh grease going in. All right, so we definitely have new grease flushed through there, and now I'm just gonna smear a bunch more around the outside.
So basically, the look you're going for here is an inside-out jelly donut.
Okay, so that baby's ready for reinsertion.
Bring it close to the camera so I can see. Get a close-up. There we go. So that just drops right in to the inside of that's the big one, that's the inner bearing. So right here, this is the This is the new seal. Make note of that part number. This is a official Dexter bearing seal that came from Amazon. And outside of this, the grease and the cotter pins, really, there are no other consumables besides brake cleaner and paper towels. Yeah, but the actual hardware are bearing seals, one for each tire, one for each wheel. And all this does is that it presses up against there and keeps the grease from coming out. And this is what keeps the grease from coming out from the inside, from the inner bearings, and from the outer bearings. What keeps grease from leaving are the dust caps.
I'm just putting a little bit of grease around the edges so that it will hopefully tap in smoother.
Yeah,
easier.
Yeah, because it's going to be a tight fit, and you want it to be a tight fit.
Yeah.
Here, what you want is some kind of soft mallet, and this little 2x6 helps too. You can kind of distribute the weight.
So I'm gonna put a paper towel over the top so that I don't get any debris in there. And then just using this so that there's a flat surface to push the seal in evenly. In theory, takes a few whacks. That sounded good.
Yeah, and you can just take the rubber mallet directly to it at the end and just kind of flush out all the edges. It's pretty good. So that's what the finished product should look like on the inside.
Another thing is while you've got the brakes opened up, it's the perfect time to adjust your brake pads. So the way normally what you're supposed to do to adjust your brakes is come in from behind, because you'll have the wheel on the outside. So you have to go in from behind under here, and there's a hole. And then you have to use like a flathead screwdriver to get in and to turn this adjustment right here. So it's pretty challenging. Mm-hmm. I find it's a lot easier to do it right now while I have the wheel off. So I can see it clearly. And so what I'm gonna do is turn this adjustment. I'm gonna expand the brake pads out in both directions.
So it's like a threaded nut with notches.
Yeah.
All the way around the outside. So
right.
You just kind of push up against the notches to turn it, and as it turns, it's using the thread to push a threaded bar apart, hence pushing the brake shoes further away from each other.
Right. Yeah. So, and I like to count how many notches I've gone, so that if I need to go the other way, I can kind of split the difference. So that's about 5.
Mm-hmm. So then you find out if it's the right tension when you slide the hub back on, right? This feel like if there's any tension.
So now I'll see how well it fits on here. It's still pretty loose. So I'm gonna adjust it some more.
So now careful. Now you've got some grease on the axle there, so try to not get it on yourself.
Yeah, thanks. 4, 5. So that's another 5. That's definitely a lot snugger. There it goes.
There you go.
Good.
That was 10.
Yeah.
10 turns.
Okay. So next we're gonna need to get the outer bearings lubed.
Now, when you have more grease in there, it's easier to push too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
I think it's working.
Mm-hmm. It's like a yoga move.
Totally is. All right. Okay.
You may need to do a little globbing with your hands.
Yep.
So here's what you do when you don't have a bearing greaser. What do we call these?
Bearing packer?
Bearing packer. It's not going to do as good a job, so you see the technique there is to kind of rub it up on the edges and like shove it against your palm to try to get it in between the seams. But because these bearings are in such good condition that it's going to do a more than adequate job. And by the way, this grease is just high temperature bearing grease. You can buy this at any auto parts store.
All right, so this goes in.
Yep, skinny side in, fat side out.
Like so. So we go back to
Final stretch.
this piece here has a notch, so that ensures that you put it on in one specific way.
So that's to ensure that that nut or that washer doesn't spin.
Ah, that's what that is.
Because if that washer spins, you could slowly work your nut loose if your cotter pin fails. And also, you're not going to put the castle nut on like super tight, just hand tight. Because what's going to happen is the cotter pin will keep that castle nut in place. And then there's like a hole on the axle that the cotter pin will go in. And you go as tight as you can by hand. And then, if there's no hole there, back it off to the next space where you can get a hole into the castle nut. That should do the trick. And these cotter pins are auto parts store. You can find anywhere for anything.
Yeah, so the size is 1/8 by 1.5 inches.
And the cotter pin is something that you don't want to skimp on, because it can be the last line of defense from your wheel coming off. So you do want to go ahead and replace that cotter pin every time. I mean, it doesn't have to be an expensive cotter pin, it just has to be a regular old cotter pin that fits.
Yeah, no, they're not expensive at all.
I mean, some of you might think, oh yeah, my cotter pin's still good, I'll just bend it back. I'll bend it down and then bend it back again. But what will happen with cotter pins, as a lot of you guys probably know, is that they get metal fatigue right where it bends. And it will just eventually break. And that's not what you want to have when it's under that dust cap.
And hopefully at this point you don't have any more spare parts laying around, because this is the last step.
It's all supposed to go back.
That actually happened to me one time. I got to this part and there was an extra, I think it was that.
The washer?
The washer was out.
Right, that's one that you can miss. And sometimes it's nice to know what size dust cap you use and just have spare ones. Because it's supposed to fit on there snugly, and it just pressure fitted on. So if you have a crack or if it doesn't fit snugly, it's time to replace it. But if it doesn't have either of those conditions, you can reuse them. Even if it's like a little dented up, they're going to get dented up by you taking it off, putting it back on. But that's not going to harm it. But that's it. this is done.
Pretty much it.
And all you do now is you slide the wheel back on, you tighten the lug nuts, and you've done your own bearings and inspected your own brakes. ×4.
Yeah, I found it takes between 3 and 4 hours. Budget like an hour a wheel.
And if you're doing it for your first time, you're gonna basically spend the whole day, you know, doing it the first time.
Yeah.
So that is it. That is how you repack a bearing on a trailer and also inspect the brakes. You can easily do this job yourself in half a day if you've done it before. And if you're doing it for the first time, you'll probably want to set aside an entire day to make sure you're doing it right. It's an easy job. You can do it yourself. And this is the only way that you're going to make sure that you're doing it right. If you leave any kind of foreign object, or if you let some metal get inside that bearing space, it's going to be bad news when you go down the road. I hope that was informative. If you have any questions about repacking your bearings, feel free to comment below. Give me a thumbs up and a like, and I will see you guys in the next video.